Good afternoon, my friends, or I guess it's about evening, on a pretty beautiful day here in the Willamette Valley. And it's been mid 50s maybe, and not a lot of rain. Pretty just mellow day here, and not that you care how my weather is, but hey, small talk, right? So I'm here to talk about greed. Oh boy, greed. What a question. What is greed? And this is kind of off the cuff, and it's something I've been thinking about for the last 3 days, 4 days, and it was ever since I watched this really interesting show, and I may have already talked about this briefly, but um, it's a channel that I really enjoy. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a part where somebody mentioned that greed isn't necessarily resigned to the wealthy. And I've always had that kind of thought in the back of my mind that, greed, we tend to associate it with rich or powerful people because we know that in order to achieve certain levels of success and power and fame and wealth, you have to be somewhat greedy. At least that's what we believe. And sometimes more often than not, this is true. But to play the devil's advocate here and to take the extreme position, I would say that there are some very extremely wealthy people who are extremely generous, and that there are some dirt poor people who are greedy. And I'll explain what I mean by that. See, greed isn't determined by our wealth or our status or value. Greed is determined by, well, let's just read the old definition here on the tablet. So I looked it up just so I could make sure that we could all be on the same page of the noun. Of course, this is the Oxford Dictionary, but it says, greed, noun, intense and selfish desire for something. Selfish being underlined. Intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. Now, I thought this was pretty interesting. Wealth, power, or food. I mean, food is one of those things, I guess you picture a guy, a king sitting at a buffet eating a giant turkey leg while the village starves, right? But really, food is one of the exceptions. Wealth and power are two things that cannot buy you happiness or contentment long term, but they can buy you a temporary reprieve from life's ails, right? There are people who want more wealth, more power, more status, fine, but without it, they don't necessarily die. Without food, you die. So I guess in that dictionary definition, it would mean more food than you need, more wealth, more power than you need. And this is understandable when you consider the context of each human needs a little bit of power. They need power over themselves, at least their immediate environment, their household. They also need wealth to an extent that they can survive and buy the food. But there are many, many, many people out there who are never satisfied. It's the insatiable desire, the bottomless pit that greed is. It's a disease, if you will. A disease of thinking if you achieve a certain point or a certain wealth status that you will be happy, knowing deep down inside that's not true. However, I should explain myself on the poor people side because that's what really got me. If you're a person who chooses not to work when you have the option to work, let's take a case of a young 20-something homeless couple living on the streets of Portland who know that they could clean up, go in and get a job if they wanted. Totally capable adults. But choose not to work because they want to live that lifestyle. That lifestyle only exists because society makes it exist, makes it work for them. In other words, all the people around them that work are the ones that support the people who choose not to. This is why so many people get frustrated with social services, which I am all for social services. I'm all for welfare if people really need it. But, giving food stamps to people who are obviously capable of working and choose not to is a completely different story. But that's something for another time. There's greed in the sense that a lot of people will steal. Let's take a person who shoplifts. Now, there is a huge difference between a person who shoplifts to buy drugs, which is greed, and a person who shoplifts who lives in an area where there's absolutely nothing. For example, a war-torn region where everyone is looting the grocery stores. Now, there are plenty of cases of people running out with TVs from grocery stores, but there are also cases of mothers running out with their babies in one arm and, Pampers or some, baby formula in the other hand, because we're talking about survival here often. And so there's differences in how we steal, what we steal, and the conditions to which it's okay. But that's just shoplifting. There's also greed in stealing from other people. Anytime you steal something from another human being, whoever it is, it doesn't matter what your reasoning is. It doesn't matter if you're Robin Hood trying to rob from the rich to pay the poor. I firmly believe that if you steal from another person, you're doing wrong no matter who or where it is. And when I was younger, I used to steal from grocery stores. I was pretty bad. My friends and I'd go in and steal like costume jewelry for no particular reason. I mean, I don't know, just why? Because we could. The rush, right? But that was greed. That was a form of greed. But greed doesn't have to come in monetary form or theft. Greed can come in how we behave around other people. We can be greedy with our time. Sometimes we need to give more time to our kids. Maybe we find ourselves, distracted by our phones or a show, and just kind of blow it off, and then later be like, fuck, I should have talked about that on the spot, because we get sucked into these, so we can be greedy with our time when we know we shouldn't be. We can also be greedy with our, for some reason, the ravens, the crows, they never bother me. I love their calls. I should feed them some peanuts. But I think that, it's funny because it goes, I believe the show I was watching was about the 7 deadly sins, and it was just, he was talking about one at a time. I think it was like Stories of Old. That might have been the channel. But old ideas of, harming, basically don't harm others. The sins are what? Sloth, and which is, of course, laziness, and you think about that and you think, well, why should laziness be a sin? Well, it makes sense. As you get older, you understand. Like, if you don't work, if you don't put your time in, you don't do something, at least put in effort to this world, it's not just that you can't get fed, it's just that you don't feel right. You need to put in effort. You need to do something. And that's why people want to be noticed. I think that plays a large role in this kind of, why do people always want attention? People seem to have this, they're surprised, like, oh, why do others always want to get attention or be recognized for their efforts? Well, we all do, whether you like it or not. And that's the thing, whether you are a carpenter or run a YouTube channel or build staircases or put tents together in a factory or are a lumberjack, it doesn't matter. You want to have somebody go, hey, good job for what you did, whatever it might be. That propels us further to want to be better people. But there is such a thing as kind of, I don't know, greediness with that as well. I don't know how to define it, but kind of a sense of entitlement, if you will. Greediness can lead to entitlement, I guess. And entitled people, to me, are some of the worst people on earth. I mean, they're the folks who go into the grocery store, some random grocery store, and just expect everybody to cater to them. Or, kind of roll their eyes at the cashier, whatever it might be. But anyway, that's enough about that. My ramble's over, and I'll talk to you all next time. I hope you all have a fantastic evening or morning. Peace now.